what is the latest right now with UPS? I know just as we were like going live, there's a tentative deal on a new contract. What are you hearing?
Right. Well, it's been a whirlwind of a day. I took a train down to Baltimore from my home of Brooklyn for a live stream specifically focused on what's going on. And I get a press release saying there's a TA, there's a tentative agreement. This is the largest private sector bargaining agreement in the United States. And we have now a TA. We don't have the language, but right now it looks like there's a lot of significant gains. We don't know all the details, and I'm getting a whirlwind of different reactions right now. Okay. But right, we're looking at 340,000 workers. Over half of them are part-time package handlers, warehouse workers. The other half are these delivery drivers, the people that you and I interact with every day. They're dealing with a ton of different issues. Contract talks broke down about 3 weeks ago. And over the past 3 weeks, what have we seen? We've seen a ramping up of the contract campaign, practice pickets, rallies, distributing information, trainings, all this stuff to make a strike threat credible.
Right. But would strike be one testing, as Jane McAlevey would say.
Absolutely.
As we've talked about. So basically kind of doing all this groundwork. I just want to stop you because since the strike talks broke down, the union's been like, okay, we're going to organize. We're going to get to work even before an actual strike.
Yeah. I mean, this has actually been a year. This has been a year of a contract campaign. This is not really common. The last time, what we're looking at right now is truly historic moment for the Teamsters union, for the labor movement in general, for the broader, quote unquote economy and logistics. And just to take one piece of that, for the Teamsters, for the labor movement, they've been organizing this for a year. August last year is when they started, which I believe was the 25th anniversary of the last time UPSers went on strike, 185,000 of them in 1997. But they've been preparing. This is something that is different, that is the result also of electing a new, more aggressive leadership in the union. And this is happening in different unions around the country as well. We're seeing more confrontation with corporations, and they've prepared. They are distributing information. They're getting everybody mobilized, excited, raising expectations. That's really key and important. And we're seeing that. So the past 3 weeks, they just ramped it up. We saw all these fun videos from all around the country, workers basically practicing the picket line. It's pretty amazing to see just like how many people have been organized. And it clearly worked. Workers, the most important thing on the tool belt of a worker is the strike, right? Yeah. The threat of a strike. And they really brandished that, and they clearly have gotten at least some of the goods. We don't have all the language, but the key things that were basically hanging up these negotiations were the wages for part-timers.
Right.
And these are 60% of the workforce. Some of these folks make $16.20 an hour. Before that, before the COLA increase, it was $15.50. Poverty wages. These are people in poverty. And it looks like, there are significant increases. The people I'm talking to are saying, this is incredible. Other folks are saying this is not good enough. But really, we don't have all the information, and we're going to see, are they going to vote this down? Just to emphasize, this is a TA, so this isn't set in stone yet. There's about, we're going to have to wait about 3 weeks till late August to know whether this is the contract.
And do you have any understanding about whether they've leveled the playing field in terms of the wages for part-time? Like, are they being adequately compensated now? Are the people who I know we're doing the same work, but then getting paid a lot less? Has that changed at all in this contract?
Right. Well, there's just to go over some of the major issues. There's a bunch of them going on. What we were just talking about is like one of the lingering ones. Contract talks broke down July 5th. That's what we were talking about. Now 3 weeks of like basically organizing to prove, we're ready or they're ready. So they, specifically part-timers, they were bumped up to a base pay of $21. And then there's a general wage increase totaling around $7.50. Some catch-up raises, as it's called, basically for part-timers who've been there for a very, very long time. And this is a terrible wage chaos going on at UPS. So trying to compensate people who've held out, right?
Right.
So it looks like, it depends on who you ask, but it looks like there has been a significant bump there. What you were talking about with like tiered wages and stuff. This is impacting like tons of workplaces all over, the country. UAW, like Kellogg's, UPS is no different. Basically, unequal work for equal work for unequal pay. There are two classes of drivers, and this was a huge issue because some were making way less than the others and had less protections. This appears to be abolished, which is a huge win.
Oh, wow.
This was like one of the main things that they were fighting for over the past year. This is what Sean O'Brien, the president of the union, was basically running on, kick-ass contract UPS, leveraging that for Amazon organizing, which they are already starting. We also are going to see air conditioning in new package cars. There's obviously some devil in the details there. We saw people die.
Yeah. And we've also seen, I've seen recently, just different viral videos of UPS workers, talking about solidarity and folks who are full-time and also are, on the upper tier of the 2-tier system, but who are like, no, I would go on strike because solidarity, because my fellow workers are getting underpaid and this is BS and it's making our entire industry more precarious. But yeah, I mean, it's so funny because, the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA strike are going on. The AMPTP has refused to even come to the table with a tentative agreement. That they don't have a counteroffer there. Mm-hmm. We have this counteroffer now. I mean, it's not as many workers and arguably more money to be lost, but it's really interesting that clearly and I don't want to get into the Teamsters are more organized. I don't think that's what I'm saying, but I think it is interesting that UPS has come to the table.
Well, it's about probably what they think, Teddy, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's probably what they think the value system is, right? We're still trying to prove value points here on the side of the creatives. Right. And if the Teamsters strike, the world is dependent upon packages. You understand? And they're dependent upon people who execute that. And that has not become as automated and as, all these, a drone can do this and do that. It still doesn't take place. We have a major storm out here right now. I just saw 2 young women delivering packages and you know what I'm saying? So, and they out there in that rain. So we don't have that end. On the other end, it's like, well, we don't need the actors. We don't need the writers. Mm-hmm. We can continue to do this without them. And so once, there has been a dry spell of us being available and we see what, the public also has to get involved with us as well. Like when I hear UPS is going on strike, I'm like, no, they're not. Because somebody better talk to somebody because I need stuff.
For sure.
Here's that actors or writers are like, oh, what are they complaining about? We don't need them. Yeah, because you got marathons of Green Acres that you can watch. But how long are you going to be able to watch that shit?
No. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, once the consumer boycott starts, if it does start for SAG, and for the industry, that's different. And or if for some reason, the trickle of streaming just stopped. If everything stopped, people would probably take to the streets, to find out. Stranger Things has got to come back, obviously. Yes. People will lose their minds. But this is, I mean, it's a good sign. I don't know, Teddy, if you wanted to, were they expecting? I mean, this is a win, right? They don't want to go on strike. Nobody really wants to go on strike.
I think that, yeah. I mean, it depends on who you ask. There are certainly some people out there who believe that a strike would show this country, a strike of 340,000 workers, definitionally in every single zip code in the country, can show that when workers fight and when they strike, this leverage that a lot of us don't use, they win, right? That said, these are people who need this money. They have families. They say nobody wants to strike. That's probably mostly accurate. So this was a really, really important TA that we haven't fully seen. We've seen the highlights from the Teamsters, and there are significant gains. Whether that's enough for the workers, that's up for the workers to decide.
Sure,
we're going to see.
What do you? I mean, I think it's really interesting because there is an argument to be made that you just did, maybe a strike would be good for I mean, if there's anything that they're missing there, they could just do a baby strike and let's see how much that costs UPS, and they'll come to the table even they know they can get more out of them. you know.
Mhm.
I had a question for Teddy, Francesca, if I could.
Yeah, please.
I know one of the things that they do on our end in the Writers Guild and Actors Guild is they keep you stuck in a position so that they don't have to pay you, right? Like instead of making you could be doing the same work as a principal actor, but they could keep you on a smaller scale so that they can pay you that scale. It sounds like to me that they keep a lot of people in part-time because it's more beneficial to keep them in part-time instead of letting them become full-time. Can you add to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the story of UPS over the past decades, like, part of the reason I wanted to do the Upsurge with my co-producer, Ruby Walsh, is that there's so much history to this, the Teamsters, of the economy, like there are just so many things to peel back. And just to that point, UPS is what it is today, the largest package courier in the world, because they had a two-tier system developed back in the 80s, before the two-tier of the drivers that was just seemingly resolved in this TA, where they split the pay of full-time and part-time workers. They started replacing full-timers with part-timers because it was better for them schedule-wise. They could basically exploit them further. And that's why we saw over the 80s, huge explosion of UPS in the 90s, even more so, to the point where people were fed up. They were scared to lose their full-time jobs. They were upset that they didn't get enough hours at times. And if they did get enough hours, they were making half the wages. So there's all these different ways that UPS has created tiers or divisions, tried to stoke divisions in the workforce. And they were a trailblazer for the rest of corporate America. This is a part of a larger trend, right? This is corporate restructuring, whether it's outsourcing or moving factories down to the South where there's less union-friendly, environment. This is just what UPS does, and they've benefited from it. And in 1997, people were fed up, particularly with this part-time issue, and they struck and they won. Unfortunately, the Teamsters went back to sort of like this old guard leadership. And again, we saw exploitation of part-time workers, more of them, the introduction of new tiers, like the driver tier. So yeah, they totally like to cordon off people, stoke division, try to divide the workforce, crack the union. This is what UPS is, and they're a leader on that front.
And that just seems like such a basic labor issue that this country cannot fucking legislate around, which is there has to be a cap on part-time work. You know what I mean? You have to offer people full-time work if they can work full-time. That's it.
Absolutely.
It seems like a basic labor law and protection that we don't have. But I did want to ask about Amazon, because when we had talked about Teamsters, I think with Alex Press a few months ago, and we were talking about Amazon and what this could mean for Amazon delivery drivers.
Well, this is the golden ticket to bring and for the Teamsters to show the workers, look what you can win with a union. Amazon drivers, right now, 84 of them, dispatchers and delivery drivers, are striking right now in Palmdale, California. They've taken these picket lines rolling across to several states, basically to tell the company, look, like, you need to recognize us. And it's very difficult for them because they're in a different situation than the UPS drivers. Right. UPS is kind of like a unionized island in the logistics sector, and Amazon is gunning for the top spot, except for they do this thing where they have delivery service partners, basically subcontractors who, hire all of their delivery drivers. So they're not technically employees. And that means that they don't get all these protections. It also makes it harder to unionize, which is the fight going on right now. Totally. But even the warehouse workers, they're severely exploited, which is why it was so important for the part-timers, who are mostly warehouse workers, to win big in this contract. So the Teamsters can say, look, if you unionize, if you fight, this is what you can win. And the stakes are unionizing Amazon or deterioration of the working class, because that's what Amazon really is to all of us, including actors, writers, and everyone in the entertainment
podcasters.
Industry. Of course. Yeah, you and me.
we exactly. No, because Palmdale Amazon drivers, they have affiliated with the Teamsters, correct?
Yes, they have. Local 396. They are Teamsters now.
That's great.
The Amazon hasn't recognized them. And that's
right,
sort
of
of
course not.
this issue right now. They want to make sure that they can be classified as a joint employer, meaning that Amazon does in fact control their work, which they do. And therefore they have to bargain. They have to come to the bargaining table, not just this DSP, which is battle tested strategies, which they signed a contract. They got $30 an hour. But the question is, can they actually get that? Because Amazon controls everything.
Right.
That, you know, besides maybe like ownership of these cars that they use.
Yeah,
So it's
which
a
is
mess.
its own like ridiculous pyramid scheme with the owners of the trucks and the different trucking companies and subcontracted companies who get screwed over. There's been a lot of reporting also about that and how ruinous it is for it's not profitable for them. They're being the middleman in the Amazon case, but yeah.
Amazon's model is basically just like, you know, undercut prices, make sure you can kick everyone out, become a monopoly. And that's when, of course, you can start raising prices. You know, FedEx does this too. They all have all of their drivers, or most of their drivers, subcontractors. What does that mean? These workers are exploited even more.
Yeah. Before we let you go, tell me about like how the media has been covering or not covering. I mean, there has been kind of this radio silence around like the like actors and writers. You don't see you see interviews, Manika, like of with writers and actors on the streets, but nobody no one's rolling out like a interview with Matt Damon in studio. And it's like, gee, I wonder why, because it's the same studio, you know?
Yeah.
But, so what about UPS? How's the media been covering this or not?
Man, there's a lot of media problems with how UPS has been covered. It's basically anything that's in the supply chain area, like anything that really can grind this economy to a halt, which UPS can't. UPS workers, 6% of the GDP transported by UPS. We saw it with the rail workers last year. In the lead up to a potential strike, we got media sounding the alarms. Most of them saying, we have this huge thing coming. Be careful. Like, this is what you need to do with your packages. This is how you can prepare. All the economic damage is coming, instead of, wow, look at these 340,000 workers who are fighting for the working class. You know, who if they win this brilliant contract with a credible strike threat, then this is going to, change people's lives way beyond even this enormous workforce. So it's framing us. The media has really been framing us as consumers, which, we are. And, as we were saying before, like it would kind of not be great to get our packages late. But what also would not be great is if the UPS exploits these workers and all of our standards fall. That is a way higher cost than this potential billions and billions of dollars that would be lost. There's just, the impact is immense.
Well, there's no one on television truly arguing from the point of view of working people, who's like, what will this mean for my family? It's like, no, you're fine.
The media wants to like do our work for us and define us as the consumers.
Yes.
When in reality, most of us are workers, and so if you identify as a consumer in this particular situation, that you can be a consumer rights advocate, and that's very important. But in this situation, if you're a consumer or you're a worker, that's the question of which side are you on. And when your packages stop, are you pissed off as a consumer and therefore at the workers, or are you pissed off because you're a worker and you're pissed off at the company? And that's the question. And the media, mainstream media generally is not helping. I think it's better in recent years. We have more labor reporters. We have shows like this.
Yes.
So there's better coverage.
And definitely, mainstream news is all like, they are grooming us to be little happy capitalists and future billionaires, although never going to happen. And it's always like, how does this affect you and all the BS that you bought, which totally, I'm a new mom. I need my packages.
Yeah.
I need my sippy cups with the long straws. But it's at this point.
Mom, I get it. I got my cat's on all kinds of pills.
Exactly.
Kidney pills. He just doing his little, he come here. He need help.
We need to check out how this cat is doing.
He needs UPS packages.
Oh, baby.
You gotta take kidney pills and thyroid pills.
Oh. Yeah, they have to keep coming.
Also needs a parent who can pay those bills and and pay for those packages. It's actually what's been amazing to me, like just seeing the SAG and WGA and entertainment strikes, is like we often cordon off entertainment workers in like this position where we don't even think of them as workers. They're doing labors of love, or like they're celebrities or whatever.
Sure. Or it's all for the prestige.
Hearing people talk, like folks who like, I believe there's that guy, Alex O'Keefe, who like was on food stamps, and even though wrote like a hit television show.
That's everyone. It's
everybody.
It's the with the actors and the writers. It's like people think we are in a luxury career, right?
Mm-hmm.
You chose this luxury because you could just get out here and do this other thing. They don't respect that there are people who have creative and that creatives should also be respected, and it's a gift. It's a, so listen, I just won a WGA award.
Congrats.
And I'm not so, like, I loved working on Inside Amy Schumer. I loved being with those people. We worked hard to bring such great, but it was like, the year we win, okay, now everybody going on strike. So sometimes you don't want the prestige, because it's like, I would like to just skip past all of this. But at the end of the day, when we talk about at the top of the pandemic, when we were struggling the most, there's a certain amount of money you have to make to get insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then it was cutting people off that didn't have that amount just out of nowhere, telling us that Cobra would be an option. I'm blessed that I had enough money to stay into making the insurance. Who knows what's going to happen for all of us next year, because we don't have the work that we're doing. So Cobra is not an option. Cobra's
the worst.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
It's
adequately named, because it's a venomous piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, all of this though, it's like, I am very excited for a potential strike. I do hope that they, I hope they pull the trigger. I hope they do
vote it down. Yeah.
I hope they vote it down. But I also more broadly hope that these like hot labor summers and everything starts to turn into some real agenda points for what we need in this country, which are, for example, universal health care, for the love of fucking God. So we don't have to, it's not piecemeal like this. And it's also like, it should not ultimately be the union's job. The union should be like advocating to make sure our healthcare is good. But, what are we doing here in this country anymore? Because anyway, yeah.
And the money's there. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
It's not like people are bleeding. It's not like you bleeding them dry. The money's there. And what it is these people at the top, they want to buy, when you watch these shows where they, back in the day when VH1 used to do these opulent shows about who has the most this, the most that. And then, there's like all these billionaires compete to see who's got the longest yacht, who's got the access to it. So it's just like the money's there. They got it.
Yep.
They have it. They're not going to suffer for sharing with other people at all. It's not even going to make a dent for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's like, I think that's a huge point, Yamanika. They're all pleading poverty. UPS is saying power package volumes are going to go down. AMPTP is like, this is going to harm us. And it's like, what about like the people who create your wealth? What about what happened to labor creates all wealth?
Yep.
So it's just, it's so ridiculous. Clean. I think people are waking up to it though. And what you said, Francesca, like, it's like the key thing here is, can these wins be parlayed into new organizing? And can it be parlayed into other broader gains for working people? And hope that's what will make this not a blip, but an upward trend. We're seeing a lot more people on strike this year than we have in a while. We're on track to reach like 80s level strike activity, which isn't particularly like the most strikes we've ever seen. But the difference, right? Barry Eidlin, a sociologist I was talking about with this, in the 80s, there was, in 70s, lots of strikes, but they were defensive. Right now, we're seeing a smaller upsurge, but potentially in an upward trajectory. So hopefully that's the case, And I share that same desire of kind of want to see what the workers can achieve when they flex their muscles.
Absolutely. And if the Teamsters can lead us along with Ron Perlman, we'll be fine.
That was awesome video.
It was an awesome video. And I do feel like, it is important to have, a lot of leftists will just take to Twitter and be like, general strike. And it's like, okay, let's first do some non-general strikes. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.